All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to resume with the last session for the day. For those of you who are still outside, please do come in. Feel free to bring in your refreshments and your food inside. You can enjoy your refreshments as we watch and listen in on session 7 that's coming up next. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are still outside, let's bring in your coffee and tea, your noodles inside. You may enjoy your refreshments and food while we watch session 7. All right? All right, everyone. Is everyone back inside the hall? We are ready to resume with the last session. I know we're excited for this last one as well. Interesting discussions we've seen so far. Please do bring in your coffee and tea inside the hall. You may have your refreshments as you watch session 7. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everyone. Now, let us turn our focus to the last session of the day, which is on the legal architecture of gender rights and mechanisms. A little bit about the moderator for this session. Professor Dato Dr. Noraida Endut is from KANITA of University Science Malaysia. She is a pioneer gender researcher that has steered international collaborations on violence against women, reproductive rights, and gender-inclusive policy for over 2 decades. Let's now invite Professor Dato Dr. Noraida to the stage along with her panel, His Excellency Edmund Bon, soon representative of Malaysia to the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights. And we have also Melissa Muhammad Akhir, who is the Commissioner of the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia, SUHAKAM, who will be joining us today virtually. Please welcome them. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I know we are hyped up, especially as we're about to wrap up GOF 2025. Let's keep the noise to a minimal, as we would like everyone to be able to access the sessions wholly. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. To all present, my sisters, my brothers of the same cause. So, honorable panelists for this session, ladies and gentlemen. We've come to the last panel session of the GOF today. Sorry. We may have saved this for last, but definitely it is not the least important. Okay. So the title of this session is The Legal Architecture of Gender Rights and Mechanisms. Before I go further, I would also just like to tell you a little bit about just one or two sentences about my organization or my center, Center for Research on Women and Gender, KANITA. We are part of University Science Malaysia, so we are very happy and grateful that we are able to collaborate with WFD and WBS today and yesterday for this program. Let me now introduce our esteemed speakers. Okay, so in this session today, we are going to only have 2 speakers today, although we scheduled to have 3. And one of our speakers is actually joining us from Amsterdam. Hi, Melissa. Okay, so I'm sure it's early morning there in her place. Unfortunately, Dato Yasmin Haji Muhammad Sharif could not join us today due to an illness. So we hope she gets well. And also, in any case, I think both the speakers, both the panelists who are present today, will also be able to cover some of the issues that I think Dato Yasmin would have or going to cover. Before I call upon our distinguished speakers to elucidate their thoughts, let me set the scene for the discourse in this session. So we are talking about the legal architecture of gender rights. So I don't want to preempt you by saying it's a dry subject, but I'm sure the 2 speakers are going to make the subject very lively, and a good discourse will come out of it. Just to make some kind of introduction about the context of law. So law basically shapes and reshapes society by regulating and deregulating actions, and sometimes also regulating and deregulating inactions or behavior of individuals, society, and the state. Law usually refers to a system of rules and regulations established by an authority, usually government, and recognized, accepted by society as regulating its actions and imposing sanctions when the regulations are breached. While we are mostly familiar with the domestic law in our countries, modern contemporary nations also widely accept the regulation of their relationships and interactions by international law. So international law, on the other hand, comprises rules, principles, and intergovernmental agreements that govern the conduct and relationships between nations or between nations and international organizations. A distinct feature of international law is that while nations agree to be bound by the international law, their compliance to the substantive provisions of the law is more difficult to ensure. Thus, international law is a persuasive rather than strictly enforceable source of law. It should be noted that not all international instruments that countries sign or agree with give rise to international legal obligations. In creating change towards gender equality, law can be a powerful tool, but also may work to the contrary in upholding the principles of justice and equality and to facilitate the upholding of rights and empowerment of women and girls. So in this session, we are discussing at least 3 objectives. I'm sorry, I wanted to use technology, but I'm still a kind of a little bit old-fashioned and want to look at papers. So the three objectives that we want to present to you in this session includes to explore the foundations of gender equality law in Malaysia. To do this, we want to delve into the key legal instruments, both national and international, that shape gender rights, including constitutional guarantees, statutory protection, and global framework like CEDAW and the SDGs, and perhaps also look into the ASEAN context, whether there are any existing or emerging legal framework. Secondly, we want to examine mechanisms for justice and reform, and in doing this, we want to assess how institutional tools such as courts, commissions, and parliamentary processes can be strengthened to uphold gender justice and respond to violations effectively. And lastly, we want to look at the connection between the legal frameworks and everyday realities, and to highlight how laws are experienced to diverse communities. So we are looking at the intersectionality of women's lives. I think primarily we want to look at how law interact with the realities of women's lives, but at the same time we have to look at the intersectionality of women's lives in terms of their background, socio-economic background, the context of ability or disability, the social cultural background as well. So these are some of the things that we want to address in this session, and we have with us two very abled panelists who will take about 12 minutes each to present their thoughts, to elucidate their thoughts, and then we will open the session to discussion with the floor. I think His Excellency Edmund Bon has already been introduced this morning, but I just would like to reiterate. He's a very important person as far as human rights for Malaysia is concerned, by the fact that he's currently Malaysia's representative to the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, or AICHR. But of course, Edmund is also a prominent human rights lawyer in Malaysia, and I think many of us also know him. So Edmund is a Chevening Oxford human rights barrister who spearheaded the ASEAN push for the UN guiding principles on business and human rights. So he continues to litigate and advise on regional rights standard. I would also immediately introduce Melissa as well. Melissa is a good friend. She's currently Commissioner of the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia, or SUHAKAM. She is a lawyer by training, but I think she has mostly been at the activism forefront, or the advocacy forefront of women's human rights and children's rights. Her career has also spanned a position in the government as well as in the civil society. So she was a deputy public prosecutor. And she was a key person also who drafted Malaysia's child protection legislation, and now champion access to justice for women and children through parliamentary advocacy and regional training. Please give a big round of applause to our two panelists today. Okay, to begin our session today, I would like to turn to Edmund, whose leadership in regional human rights diplomacy has helped shape Malaysia's engagement with ASEAN framework. His Excellency Edmund Bon will open with reflections on aspiration to action, assessing the effectiveness of ASEAN's legal framework on gender equality. So the floor is yours, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Professor, for the kind introduction. Selamat sejahtera, selamat tengah hari Selamat petang. I know it's a last session, so it's a bit difficult to digest a lot of the information. I see that there's a lot of information. I will just talk very informally, if it's okay. I know the topicnya macam very complicated, legal architecture of gender rights and mechanisms. But I think for us here, not all of you are lawyers juga, so maybe we can speak about it more in how it applies to us practically, and also in a way that we can engage. And I think I want to have more questions on it. This issue of gender rights and legal architecture means basically what is the law, and what is the problems with the law, and how do we, or what should we do to change the law. I think, as I mentioned this morning, there are a lot of gaps on gender equality in Malaysia, and the government, both state government and federal government, can take 3 actions that I want to suggest in this presentation. I have some slides which I will show. The first one that I want to suggest is, and why I want to suggest it, is anti-discrimination against women law and gender equality law. This morning, I mentioned this, pagi ini dalam kenyataan saya, I mentioned that we need an anti-discrimination against women law, or in positive gender equality law, the Gender Equality Act. Why do we need this? I'll tell you about my own personal experience in court. If some of you don't already know, many years ago, there was this case called Noraida binti Muhammad Saikin. She applied for a job with the Ministry of Education to become a guru sambelan for temporary period, temporary teacher. And she went through the whole process, and she was chosen. But before they were going to confirm her, they asked her, the government, the education officials at the ground, asked everyone that they were going to confirm, are any of you pregnant? Because, of course, if you're pregnant, you can see, right? If you're at a certain stage. But I think obviously all of them, you cannot see whether you're pregnant, but the question was asked. And this is very important because nowadays, if somebody asks you whether you're pregnant in a job application, it is actually not a good thing. It's actually a violation of your rights. Nobody should be asking you, are you pregnant? Or are you planning to become pregnant? Soalan tu sebenarnya salah. Yeah? Just to let you know. And if somebody is asking those questions, you should be telling them you shouldn't be asking these questions. Similarly, questions like, do you drive to work? Do you have a car or do you have a motorbike to come to work? Soalan tu tak relevan kepada kualiti kerja atau ciri-ciri sama ada seseorang perlu diberi pekerjaan tu atau jawatan tersebut. So going back to the case, Noraida was very honest. She put up her hand and then she said, yes, I'm a few months pregnant. And then they withdrew the confirmation letter. Because the confirmation letter dah diberikan, jawatan dah diberikan. Tapi lepas tu, dia kata, oh, I'm pregnant, pegawai menarik balik surat tawaran tu, surat confirmation tu. So she came to see us with the husband, and now I can say after so many years, because this is a landmark case. You look at in the region, This is a landmark case, and in Malaysia it's a landmark case. I was very lazy. They came to see us many, many times. I said, alah, we cannot do anything lah. Because in Malaysia, undang-undang kita berkenan kesaksaman, hak kesaksaman bagi wanita is not there, right? But they kept pressuring us. And this, I said, you only guru sambelan, you know, what is your loss? So my attitude was that. But in the end, after a lot of pressure, I said, okay, we put our heads together, get a team, and on a pro bono basis, what we did was to research the law again, look at certain loopholes. And one of the issue we had is that if you know Dato Sharizat Jalil, long time ago when she was a minister of women, she had proposed an amendment to our federal constitution. If you remember, it was a victory for women in Malaysia many, many years ago, even before the case. And the government of Malaysia amended the federal constitution, Article 82, Article 82. How many of you have belum buka perlembagaan persekutuan? Pernah tak? Tak pernah? Berapa orang tak pernah buka perlembagaan tu? Tolong malam ni, sekarang, tolong buka 82 perlembagaan persekutuan. Artikel 8 dalam kurungan 2, perkataan jantina, woman, right? Gender, right? Was inserted into the constitution. But if you look at the Article 8.2, Article 8.2 does not specifically say pregnancy. That pregnancy is prohibited discrimination. It just says no one should be prohibited in the employment of public office, blah, blah, blah. Okay? I don't want to go into technical detail, but 8.2, if you look at it, doesn't specifically say it. Then what we did was, we looked at international law. Today I mentioned the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, long, CEDAW lah. Okay, CEDAW. Malaysia has signed up to CEDAW, CEDAW. Malaysia also signed up to the CRC, Convention on the Rights of the Child. And Malaysia also signed up to the Persons with Disabilities Convention. So I said, we will do this. We will use CEDAW, and we interpret CEDAW. We asked the Malaysian court to interpret CEDAW to say that our Article 8.2, because we had made an amendment to the Constitution, has now incorporated all the CEDAW principles. Because if you look at CEDAW internationally, if you are terminated for being pregnant, that is gender discrimination. But in Malaysia, it was never recognized by our government, it was never recognized by our courts, and of course, it was never recognized by the teachers in the school. So we filed the case. Government said, no. We already knew what government was going to say. Government said Article 8.2 doesn't apply. We had to argue that CEDAW interpretation of gender discrimination, that pregnancy is a form of, because only women can be pregnant, right? Men cannot be pregnant. So naturally, it was discrimination, because you are discriminating the person, Nur Fadila Saikin, for a feature of her being a woman. We argued the case in Shah Alam High Court, and the judge agreed with us. So for the first time, we had a judgment, and you can go on the internet. We were very proud of it. I keep talking about it, because that was the first case that our courts have interpreted our constitution to apply these principles of gender non-discrimination based on pregnancy. This is against the government. 3 years after that case, second case, I wasn't involved in this case because I wouldn't have taken this case. And I will say it openly. The lawyer that took up this case, I think, misinterpreted the Nur Fadila Saikin case. Because everybody was suddenly very happy. Nur Fadila Saikin, and then we went to seek damages, and she got damages. 3 years later, the case of AICHR, if you remember, in this case of AICHR, I think the complainant was Rafiza. AICHR offers you a training contract, offered her a training contract. In the training contract, it says that if you become pregnant during the training, AICHR have a right to terminate you. Is this discrimination or not? Morally, discrimination, right? You're being terminated halfway, even halfway, or if you are pregnant during a training, that's discrimination. But what was the difference? Who knows what's the difference? What is the difference between Nur Fadilah Saikin's case and AICHR? Somebody mentioned it just now. We have the Constitution, right? The Constitution applies, unfortunately, in Malaysia, only against government. We, in Nur Fadilah Saikin's case, we sued the government. We sued the Selangor state government, yes, and also Kerajaan Malaysia, the federal government. In AICHR's case, she sued AICHR. AICHR is not government. So, AICHR argued, and the judge agreed, that Article 8.2, that I keep mentioning, in the Constitution, doesn't apply to AICHR, because AICHR is a private company. Is that fair or not? You have a Constitution that has Article 8.2, you have CEDAW that says you apply private and public sector, but in the Malaysian courts, when you apply it, you have two different standards. So if you are pregnant in a company that is a private company and not a public company, it is not discrimination. This is what the courts have said, the Malaysian courts, and that judgment still stands. But what does that mean for women? Does it now mean that in all private sector matters, when somebody becomes pregnant and somebody is terminated or punished for it, you can be discriminated? How can anyone then say Article 8.2 applies to all women in Malaysia? So if you get my point, what we need, why this need and why this gap is, that is why I'm saying you need a new law. You need a new regulation. And this regulation, in the next slide, must apply to both public and private sector. Next slide. Slide seterusnya, please. Yes, thank you. Private and public sector, it must apply to the private sector. So, one thing that maybe we don't know, yeah, is that a lot of everything in the Constitution, unfortunately, only applies to the public sector. Perlembagaan persekutuan kita tidak boleh diguna pakai terhadap syarikat-syarikat swasta. Yeah? That's why a lot of these human rights issues must be a protection that is provided by the federal government, but that must cover the public sector and private sector. Number two, we need to have a mechanism. We need to have a system where you have, if you have gender inequality or cases of discrimination, women or survivors or victims must be able to go and make the complaint. You cannot expect everybody to keep going to court. Nur Fadilah Saikin's case took us more than 8 years. If you don't have resources, you don't have the patience, and you don't have people who will make the effort, there will be many, many vulnerable, marginalized women who are discriminated against, but cannot seek legal redress. So that's why in this proposed law, we are suggesting that you need to have a separate tribunal or separate mediation center, where simple cases of discrimination on gender grounds, that you say, I cannot work because I need to look after my kid, can go and where flexible arrangements are made without actually going to courts. Yesterday I came back from the JB courts. I was doing a case, and do you know, the case was filed in 2024. In Johor Bahru, I am not talking about other states, but I know for a fact in Johor Bahru, my trial dates is 2027. You imagine the litigant, the plaintiff, and the defendant in a case filed in 2024 have to wait 3 years before they can go to court. Because we don't have enough judges, we have too many cases, and the cases are not running fast enough. Mediation is an alternative form of dispute resolution, and that's why I suggest that we need to think about this new law. The Malaysian government has already promised under the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights that they will look into this law, but I just wanted to share with you and the Selangor State government that you can already look at these issues even though you may not have total jurisdiction to solve all the problems. Next slide. Cadangan pertama. Cadangan kedua, care economy protection. I want to highlight the care economy. Malaysia and Philippines in ASEAN have been pushing the care economy in ASEAN very strongly. This year we have, with KPWKM, a lot of initiatives to strengthen the care economy. The care economy is a very important sector in our society. It's usually very informal, but I think we need to recognize it as a formal sector and an important part of family well-being. Next slide. So care worker protection, right? Whether you're a migrant worker, whether you're Malaysians. Next. Recognized as formal work, fair pay and continued benefits. And because you're recognized as formal work, genuine work, then your employers or your private sector or even government will have to give a bit more deference to that. Next, and finally, is the rights of older persons. I have mentioned this many times. Last week, I mentioned in an interview that when we were pushing the initiative for the right to development in ASEAN, there was a question, how do we work with older persons? I say that we should stop looking at older persons, elderly persons as a form of charity. We should stop looking at it as a form of kebajikan. We should start looking at it, and in Africa, in South America, since 2015, there is already legal recognition that there are human rights of older persons. Older persons are not seen in Malaysia as having rights. While they are seen as a human being with the same rights as other human rights, older persons are more vulnerable. More vulnerable because there are multiplied layers of discrimination, and we are feeling it. We are becoming an aging nation. We have issues of healthcare, we have issues of ageism, we have issues of discrimination, and a lot of the vulnerable groups are compounded, the older persons are compounded when they are women because there are cultural and structural barriers, including stereotypes. So my last slide, we need to look at it as a right, start talking about it as a right, start developing it as a right. We need to look at a protection from discrimination, noting the intersection between older persons and less older persons, and look at benefits on healthcare and disabilities. I just wanted to stop there, just to put these 3 main points out, and then we can take questions. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Your Excellency Edmund Bon. I think what you have done is really to set the scene of the various contexts and issues that are relevant to legal consideration, to formulation of laws in the context of the national law, I think as well, but they are also very relevant in the context of regional and international laws as far as issues are concerned. I think that fits very well into what we want to listen from Melissa. So Melissa's going to present to us on international treaties and commitments, aligning national laws with global gender standards. So can we have Melissa on now with her presentation? I will remind you, Melissa, when time is up, okay?
Thank you. I'll try to keep to time. Thank you, Prof, Moderator, and Edmund. It brings me back to when we were appearing together in KL Court before, when in our younger days, but now not as on the opposite side. So, selamat pagi semua daripada Belanda. Saya di Leiden University, kebetulan berkenaan CRC, Convention on the Rights of the Child. But as you can see on the slide, now we are going to zoom in more on CEDAW lah, and then we're going to link it to the national laws, yeah, and the gender standards. So because of time, if we can go to the next slide. If we can skip, okay. So very much because we are talking about legal architectures and Edmund had walked us through the law and how it operates. It's very important to remember, yeah, the law as how it is written or is it systems or practice is not neutral. It's very much influenced by power and privilege. And then just now, Edmund also mentioned intersection. So persimpangan. Jadi apa yang persimpangan, is it persimpangan dilema ataupun opresi, ya, bentuk-bentuk tekanan ataupun di mana hak asasi tidak diperolehi. We will be looking at that. And then we will see if, like Edmund said, this is not a welfare, this is not a charity, but we're looking at human rights and how to actually, in real life, in our daily lives, achieve substantive equality and forms of gender justice. Can we move to the next slide? The signing speed is okay for sign language.
I think it's okay.
Prof, sorry. Yeah, because I cannot see the signer. Okay. The next slide, please. Okay, so just now, Edmund also mentioned CEDAW. This is just a quick timeline, right? Starting from 1995, now it's 2025. And then Edmund mentioned we did make changes in our own federal constitution, and discrimination on the basis of gender was added in. That was 2001. So now, after that, we also had in 2010, there were the definition on what does intersecting discrimination mean. Persimpangan dan diskriminasi juga dimasukkan in General Recommendation 28. So bringing it back to Malaysia, after this timeline, we did actually submit, we can call it a CEDAW report card in 2024 in May. And then we received lah, when we submitted our report card, we also received an assessment. What is the status of women's rights or gender equality in Malaysia? So for the next slide. So for that last phrase, we mentioned intersectionality, yeah, persimpangan. So we will look at it in the next slide. If we can go to the next slide. Okay, just now Edmund said the constitution. And then Article 8, before that, it does say equality of the law. And the law is supposed to protect, right? And then added no discrimination on the basis of gender. So again, it's really nice that Edmund also mentioned another form of discrimination, let's say against older people, warga emas. If you look at the forms of discrimination, there is nothing on age. So if you're discriminated because you're a child due to your age, or if you're discriminated because you are warga emas and you're facing some difficulties, it's not covered in here. Also, I was told there was a request to add in also discrimination on the basis of disabilities in our law. But as far as we are informed, KPWKM or the ministry did not agree to add in or work for the amendment on this basis. But because we will look at some of our obligations, maybe we will see that maybe it could be another attempt to come in. Because like what Edmund said, when you are a person who is older and we are an age demographic, you may also face certain disabilities. So we will see the persimpangan, yeah, the layers of your identities that could cause discrimination in the population. Okay, next. Okay, so like Edmund said, this is not law school, but I would also like to touch on another case. This is a judge, yeah. He said in Suryani campus case. So because we were talking about our own federal constitution, and the reading of what we said just now is supposed to also be read together with the rest of our constitution. And in this case, because it's the citizenship case, where mothers give birth outside of Malaysia, when fathers can confer citizenship but mothers could not. So in this case, the good practice was the judge said when you mention anywhere in the law, the masculine gender is supposed to include females. And this is a core principle. It's a pillar of human rights. So we can see how it applies in our own law and also with the international standards. Okay, next. Okay, so if nothing else from this session, if I have time, to impress on everyone, let's look at laws just in substance. Number one, how it is written on paper, how it is embedded in structures and systems or mechanisms in Malaysia, and also most importantly in our culture. Do we normalize it socially? Do we have a society conditioning where women is not seen as a equal level to any other gender? We are of lower status. This is what we mean by patriarchy. Or is it the other way around? How does the law work? So remember when we said the law is not neutral, so sometimes people in power can have the positions of the law. So I'll give one example. So barriers to justice here is on gender-based violence. For the photo on the left, some of you may be aware because Selangor is very advanced on the Domestic Violence Act, multi-state agencies discussion. So here, when you see the law in practice, there's a lot of situations where, for example, mangsa atau survivor, they are disbelieved, they are victim blame, and if you see the phrase in Malay, that is the most common example. Many cases are discharged, not amounting to acquittal or no further action because the situations in real life where women's rights, there's a cross section of things that are not enforced. So here is tarik balik laporan polis jika mahu dapat nafkah anak. So this cuts across access to justice. So this is what we mean. Sometimes laws are nice on paper or in the SOPs as the photo that I put there, but it doesn't stop the cycles of violence. And lastly, and I'm pretty sure Professor is is the expert on this, on femicide, on this form of gender-based violence where women killed by their loved ones is a global crisis. The data is like it's more than cancer-related deaths, but I capitalize that. It's very strange to not have current national prevalence data on this. Okay, moving on. So these are the form when I said substance and in systems, yeah, and also in culture. So how do we switch it to good practices to answer the questions of this topic? So we have to identify the inequality and write the law in such it addresses the inequality. And number two, if we look at systems, just now I mentioned an SOP. Is it consistent? Is it matching with indicators? Maybe throughout the 2 years, all of you have heard about the SDGs. SDGs 5 on gender, SDG 16 on peace, justice, and strong institutions. And I will not say the least, the most important perhaps is on our culture. So laws as being the bridge to the change of behavior, to stop the patriarchal norms, whether that can be done and monitored and shown in evidence. Next. Okay, so just now Edmund has already covered Nofadila's case, which is the pregnant teachers, but we are questioning whether right now, is there already substantive equality for women at workplaces? This one might be Ministry of Education. So the gender mainstreaming, has it happened across all ministries in terms of practices? And up top is Indira Gandhi's case. So this case was cited by the judiciary as a good practice. They were very proud of the judgment of this case at the CEDAW review. But now it's 2025. What about the intersections with the Convention on the Rights of the Child? What about her daughter? Where is her daughter now? What about her daughter's right to have the love and care of both parents and her well-being? Nobody knows. Even after we succeed, we say that this is a good practice internationally. Okay, next. Okay, so I keep saying CEDAW and our report card, right? Some of the things that have been raised were also regarding those who may be marginalized. Just now we said equality before the law. What about minorities? Minorities due to their language, to their religion, or their ethnicity. Who they profess to practice their own religion and customs in an equal manner before the law. And one specific example that the CEDAW committee looked and came up with our results for the status of women's rights is also on indigenous culture. Is there any discrimination? Do they have the full right to land, for example, or practices on account of gender? Is everyone or all minorities protected substantively in equal ways? How about refugees?
Melissa, sorry, just can you hang on a minute? I think we lost your sound. Can technical person do something about her sound? Is it coming from her or from here? From her? Okay. Melissa, could you check your sound?
Check for...
We can hardly hear you right now. Could you just test or look at your sound from your side?
Yes, I'm using the mic
we are right now. Thanks.
Okay, how far back should I go?
Maybe just about a few seconds.
Okay. All right. So again, we will see what's on paper, what's in systems, and what's in culture based on the observations of Malaysia. Yeah, because these were our international obligations. Next. Can you still hear me now?
We can.
Yes. If the slides could move. I'm just trying to be within time so we can move to the main part, which is the questions. Okay, one key part. Of course, there's a lot of rights that we need to cover. The one on harmful practices just now is supposed to cover certain things pointed out that has been made a culture in Malaysia. Is the previous slide. For one, I would like to comment Selangor, for example, on child marriage. Could we have that slide, please? On child marriage, at least under the Islamic family law, you have laws in place, but now is the monitoring, because I think we did have a case in Selangor where
Melissa,
a 12-year-old where a 12-year-old married off. Yeah, that's the end. So I'll continue first. The point is regarding child marriage. So although it's in Islamic family law, is it across all laws? Is it in the Law Reform Marriage and Divorce Act, for example? Is it in the Child Act that the minimum age is 18? So this again, yes, thank you. This again is a form of intersectionality, because we will also be assessed, be reviewed regarding children who are married off, but mainly it affects girls more than boys. Boys are also affected. There are boys married off under 18. So both these points, whether CEDAW and CRC, we will be reviewed. For CRC, it's in January 2026, and the government's supposed to reply in October. How do all laws prohibit this harmful practice? Next is female genital cutting, especially among Muslims. It's set between 85% to 95%. So when we look even with other Muslim majority countries, it's highly unethical, according to World Health Organization, especially medicalization. So doctors here in Malaysia, why are we still doing this practice when it is not a requirement in across the Muslim world? And lastly, polygamy. So again, I also would like to comment Selangor before, because they were built-in features in the Islamic family law to address the gender inequalities, because there's a lot of evidence, including locally, of the negative impact in the family, of mistreatment, of non-payment of maintenance, especially on children. There was a case where the child asked, the father asked the child, hang anak siapa? He forgot that child.
Melissa, maybe one more minute.
Okay. Sorry about the technical issues, yeah?
One more minute, Melissa.
Okay, next. I'm almost at the end. If the slides could move in time as well.
that the correct one? Gender stereotyping?
Yeah. So also bringing it back to earth on political participation. So it's not, that slide is not showing for me, but I'll just go ahead and talk about it. So credit to Empower, Bersih, and Association of Women Lawyers, because they're looking at for CEDAW, Malaysia's assessment is our women in top political positions is very, very low, especially in ASEAN. And I'm pretty sure Edmund would have also some thoughts on that. In terms of top leadership positions, we are very much behind. So project 30%. And I believe there are efforts in Selangor, but I was wondering regarding the state assembly. So when we say project 30%, it doesn't mean 30% only and we stop. Because if we look at the demographic, how many women are voters, for example, in Malaysia? So 30% is a minimum. And there's an effort to have a bill that the Association of Women Lawyers and Empower are proposing with the Parliament. So tying it back to our institutions, such as the Parliament Special Select Committee or anything that is in existence in Selangor, or like Prof maybe in Penang. So looking forward to the questions on this, including on this, let's say, menu on areas of women's rights that should be addressed by the law, but in substance, in structure, and in culture. So due to the technical issues, I'll just address things in Q&A, if that's okay, Professor Moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I think a very well-rounded presentation on the context of law on women's rights in Malaysia. I think so. We are now going to open for discussion, but before I give it to the floor, I just want to ask both speakers, both panelists, to give some thoughts in relation to their presentation, because both actually have presented the connection between the international law and the domestic law. I think a lot has been mentioned that much of our law that promote equality for women in Malaysia, or that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in Malaysia, is framed by our commitment to the international legal obligation, or the international law that we signed, so the various treaties that we signed. But you also, I mean, for example, His Excellency Edmund mentioned that although we can invoke CEDAW in the cases by virtue of our constitution, by virtue of amending our constitution, but there are limitations. So the limitations may be because that it is not transposed, or it is not harmonized with our ordinary laws. So what are both your thoughts on this in terms of Malaysia's, in terms of difficulty of Malaysian legislature, or even in general the Malaysian society, in actually transposing, to borrow the European Union law context, to transpose or to harmonize our domestic laws with the international laws? So Melissa, should I give to Edmund first, or you want to do it first?
Sure, Edmund can go first.
Okay.
Thank you for the question, Professor. Just two responses. One, when we say harmonize, we try not to have a template like Europe or Africa, but what we do is we want to make sure that there is enough protection for women, and this depends on how we look at our commitments in CEDAW. So there is some, one I mentioned, the Gender Equality Bill or the Act that I'm suggesting, because CEDAW already asks us to harmonize it. And number two, it needs to cover the private sector, but there are also reservations that we have not withdrawn from CEDAW. So government needs to withdraw those reservations. But in the implementation stage, the second way I answer it is that you need to ask KPWKM. The Ministry of Women, Community and Family Development, and I think the minister was here yesterday, you all should have asked her the difficult questions, because At working level, we have been asking, I have written a few times since 2016, why the government has not been moving on this. There are some sensitivities which I will just say maybe cultural, maybe religious, but as a whole, there are certain things which can already be done, which does not offend those sensitivities. I think SUHAKAM may have the inside information on that, but when we look at harmonization of the laws to international standards, it has already taken some time, but even as we do the study and want to continue with it, we find that there is, even if you implement it, it's not going to come into effect immediately. So this really should be one of the agendas of this government, this Madani government, and I really think that you all should ask those questions to the government.
Not in defense of KPWKM, but I think some of the issues also transcend KPWKM in a sense that, for example, if you're talking about the work issue, whether the employment law, for example, because employment law will affect private sector, whether that can actually receive the international law and change. I think it has changed a little bit in terms of sexual harassment and so on, but perhaps in terms of discrimination, it was not really very clear in the employment law in terms of anti-discrimination. So, Melissa, your thoughts?
Yeah, firstly, I think we need to be careful when we keep saying culturally, because CEDAW, in case people would be able to read, or maybe not many know, the original drafters are from the Asian region as well. We cannot say it's a Western construct and then things in Geneva or in New York. No, the original content, for example, on the gender-based violence, had some drafters from India, and they had their penal code, which is almost a photocopy of ours, right? So I want to take this to look at the opportunities for us to refine whatever that we write in our law. For example, Malaysia was probably the first to have a standalone domestic violence law in 1994, 1999 in force. But until now, again, like Edmund said, the ministry has a high-level task force, but whether we have covered on intimate partner violence. There was a memorandum on how when the cycle of violence is not addressed, it causes femicide. Women die, killed by their loved ones. So things like this, we don't need to say it's sensitive, it's not in our culture, therefore we cannot share femicide numbers, cases with Section 302 of murder, but it's involving family members. So we do need to match what's happening actually affecting women's life with what's in the law. So we can't just keep saying at the CEDAW arena that, oh, we have so many races and religions, so we're not bound by this. It's universal. It's supposed to be paired with everyone, but it's also rooted to the ground evidence, the lived experiences of the women. So I'll stop now. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, both of you, on the first round of question. We have a few questions from the audience, but maybe we want to ask audience who would like to verbalize your question first, to ask question directly. Anyone? Yes, please. We have a male person.
Okay. Prof, can I ask first?
Okay.
Okay. Just a simple one. I wanted to ask, I think maybe Edmund and Melissa from SUHAKAM. How can Malaysia strengthen its accountability mechanism to ensure treaty commitments translate into the lived reality? I think when we talk especially, I think for example for the 30%, minimum 30% women political representations, it's been in the CEDAW for the longest time and Malaysia has adopted it, but we never achieved that. It's not only that, for example, the child marriage, the CRC, Child Rights Conventions, CRPD, person with disabilities, these are all the international commitments that Malaysia adopt. But in terms of the progress, we know that in terms of the accountability mechanism, that's what we see at the moment. So thank you.
So we will collect, I'm sorry, actually, You are actually first just now. I'm really sorry that it got mixed up. So can you please ask your question?
Name is Rahimi from Subang Perdana, just nearby. I was thinking in the AICHR case just now, when Mr. Edmund mentioned, it is because AICHR is a private entity. Is it not, I was thinking it is because it's stated in the contract you should not get pregnant during the time. Is it, in that case, if that's the case, then it's not necessary for AICHR to have that statement in the contract. You can just terminate you anytime. And also, maybe the next one, can also, anybody said, you must not get married during that training period or whatever. Is it considered discriminatory? Okay, that's my question.
So can you say your name again?
Rahimi from Subang Perdana.
Rahimi, okay.
Melissa, can I answer that first? Then you can go ahead. Yeah, Encik Rahimi, that's a very good question. Let me answer this by saying that our constitutional law, if it applies, and human rights, even if it's stated in the contract, the courts can strike down the contract. Means if the contract says you cannot get pregnant, some of the migrant workers that we see, their contract says when you come to Malaysia to work, you cannot get married, you cannot have babies. That is actually illegal. That's actually discrimination. So even though it's stated in the contract, you can actually strike it down. That's my first answer. So number two, if there is things, for example, I give you a very extreme example. The contract says you are allowed to steal money or kill people, right? The law says that you cannot. It's just that pregnancy issues, discrimination against women issues are still not socialized enough for people to say that pregnancy is discrimination. Child marriage is a form of violence, a form of some of the issues that Melissa mentioned just now. So to answer your question, if the Constitution had applied to AICHR, that contract would have been struck down, meaning the woman would have been able to marry or get pregnant. So despite what the training contract says, you need to test it to our highest law, which is the Constitution, and if our Constitution also has international law, then you test it with that, and the courts can strike it down. I think to Wan Rusni's question, I smile because I've been doing this for so many years. And my answer actually is, do you want me to give you the diplomatic answer? Or do you want me to give the frank answer? Or do you want to give me the politically correct answer? Because we have seen this issue of accountability being raised over and over again. There are many ways of answering the question. If you ask a specific question, why we have not translated our CRPD, our CRC, and our CDAW to a full-fledged protection for these groups, one answer would be that, which I've already raised, is that our ministry, KPWKM, maybe over capacity, doesn't have enough capacity, doesn't have resources, but also there may not be political will on the part of the minister, or maybe the understanding to translate it may not be there. I've been through this. I've been sitting with KPWKM many, many times. Our Child Act is still not up to the CRC convention when we have signed up to it, right? Even though we still have some reservations, but we're still not full to it. CRPD, our OKU Act, we even drafted a draft for KPWKM when Hannah Yeoh was there to strengthen protection. You look at the OKU Act, it sounds very good, but all the persons with disabilities who come to us and say, look, I cannot access this, I cannot use the OKU Act to sue. When you cannot sue, I cannot take it to court. I said, look, I can't use this act. The act is a promotional thing. All the time that we have spent on the PWD Act, right, is wasted because it's promotional. You can even do that on social media or do an iklan. The words are very good. Promote the rights of persons with disability. Make sure, blah, 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 blah. But I cannot use that in court. So that's why the persons with disabilities are saying, you need to strengthen that act. Hannah had started a task force. I don't know what has happened to it. CEDAW, same issue. We've been saying over and over again, the issue of workplace discrimination. You look, we have sexual harassment law, you look at, we have at work law, but that's not enough. The examples I've just given requires us to look at those accountability measures. If I was the minister, so this is the not politically correct answer, YB is here, right? If you are the federal minister and you honestly and don't have any issues, you say political will, let's do it. I give an example how Dato Azalina has pushed the Business and Human Rights Agenda, National Action Plan, because she said, no, you just do it. I just want to launch it. I know that for a fact, because she said it to her officers at Bayou, and Bayou is just an agency. And they just launched it because there was so much push from the minister. So one answer may be that, right? I can say it because I have the experience and knowledge, and we provided a lot of feedback until, okay, I say, never mind. And then the answer, the government changes so many times, we don't know what's the government policy. One critique is the 13 Malaysian plan. If you look at the 13 Malaysian plan, I don't know who drafted that part, looks at support for women, categorizes women in terms of building happy homes while supporting men to go out and be leaders. So I do not know who the heck the input came from. I was surprised when I saw it. But this is just an example of perhaps a few things: under-resourced, not enough capacity, or just political will to see whether we can, that we need to have to push this a bit forward. So I think that's another session for another day.
Thank you. Sir, Melissa, your thoughts on the two questions on why are we still here talking about the 30% quota, and it has not transformed into some kind of legal mechanism to ensure that we get the 30%, and can we say contractual normal ordinary contractual obligation, can it contain discriminatory provisions?
Yeah, so this relates back to the last point of the project 30% that I was talking about just now. And basically the presentation that was done in Parliament to the Parliamentary Select Committee on Women was that it doesn't work anymore. Whatever that was done in the past, now is the time for the law to say that this is mandatory with 30% as a minimum. So that's the bill that's being pushed by Association of Women Lawyers and Empower, and I think with and also Bersih, with full support of the PSSC. So in there, to ensure that it's also realistic and practiced by political parties, taking into account gender stereotyping or the triple burden that women face. We can see now there's even bullying, of parliamentarians, how things that are put on the responsibility or burden of women and things with being female are like made fun of as if it's a joke, when we know that the strength in many political parties are the women leaders and also the women voters. So I think that should be reclaimed, starting with the bill. That has to be pushed forward. So then it's not just tokenism, for that part. I'll quickly jump to the nafkah part, and this is where we mentioned a little bit just now when Sido asked us about polygamy, but it also cuts across because it's the Islamic family law. And within there, we need to see, okay, it's written in the, for example, on the law, but does the system work to chase the situations? There's a court order, is it enforced? And lastly, the culture. If throughout, no officers or no one in the public, there's zero tolerance of people who do not fulfill their responsibilities under the law, then it can be addressed. So the law cannot just stop on people. Yeah, that's the question about nafkah. And lastly, this is a great question about rural or underserved communities, because the CEDAW committee did raise regarding interior and rural communities, including, for example, the Penan, in Sarawak. So legal mechanisms have to match their local realities. So now there's efforts to make that they are paralegal, so they know how to access their rights. They are informed of their rights. because there's even fact-finding missions before. When Penang girls heading to school were raped by loggers, and they found that it was an overall compounded issue. You're raped, then you're married off to an adult, so that's child marriage, and then you're cut off from access to education. So all these things must be throughout all laws. So when we say all laws, it includes ones on culture, ones on Mahkamah Anak Negeri and things like that. It has to cut across, but the gender lens has to be with the rights holder, which is the women and the girls or whoever else that's facing gender discrimination in rural or interior or remote areas. So I'll stop there first. Prof?
Thank you, Melissa. I'm just going to beg from the organizer that I think I want to let Omna just ask her question. Very short, Omna, please.
Can you hear me? Thank you so much. Omna Sriniong from Engender. I just want to say something about this thing about formulating the law. We know that when there's political will, as rightfully pointed out by Edmund, it'll be done just like that, right? We also know that there is capacity beyond government that can come together to actually enact it. Because for the anti-sexual harassment law, the act, before that, the process was for the gender equality legislation or anti-discrimination legislation. It's during the time of Hannah and Dato Sri won. And that was put on halt to allow the anti-sexual harassment legislation take place. So that special task force that was appointed is still around. And it comprised of academia, civil society experts from the ministry and so on. But the civil society experts were really major players in that, had great interest in contributing towards that. So I think it's a matter of convening. When you say come, people are waiting to be called. And so if this is going to be like a recommendation to Kementerian Wanita, I think we need to assure, not demand, assure Ministry of Women that actually you have people who are waiting to come on all these international treaties. We have large movements around that who have expertise and who are practitioners. And so when she calls, we'll all be there in these different groups to ensure alignment demi negara.
So thank you, Omna. There are questions in there, but also a very good comment overall. I just want to then wrap up by giving a short few seconds for Edmund and Melissa to say last, maybe positive words about what we can do with regard to law reform, especially to make sure that we can reflect gender justice and rights. Melissa, you go first, please.
Yes, a quick win perhaps is how much the Sustainable Development Goals and the timeline that we have now, because we will be reviewed on the Convention on the Rights of the Child, because there's things that the government has to face up and answer. I think we should leverage on that. And of course, with Edmund there, also things that are moving in ASEAN. With the Sustainable Development Goals, it's already mainstream with the government agencies. So we're not starting from zero. We just need to show them what needs to be sustained until 2030. I think this is an opportunity, especially if we pull out specific things from SDGs 5 and 16. So let's work together on that. And I think there will be one big capacity building next year in Parliament, where local government and state authorities might also be invited. And it's on CEDAW and CRC, the intersections on that. CRPD, I'm not sure, like Edmund said, always an afterthought, no teeth, but positively, maybe CEDAW, CRC, and we can intersect. So that's all from me on maybe we can work together on this. And SUHAKAM is committed on areas of pushing forward the human rights implementation across Malaysia. Thank you.
Just quickly, I want to say that as a state level forum here, very, very important, the state and federal of course have different powers and jurisdiction, but there's a lot of things that the state can do. One example which I say which I would recommend is actually to allow channels for grievances or allow channels for complaints. on gender inequality. That can be like a collection center to get the data and the cases, and then the state has lawyers or state has legal people, a bureau, for example, to filter those cases and then refer those cases to the relevant agencies or SUHAKAM to actually support the underserved, underrepresented and vulnerable women, survivors and victims. So the state actually can become a channel for that and not just allow the federal agencies to already overburdened with cases to look into it. The state doesn't need to actually look directly into the cases, but where possible, the states may intervene even at that stage so that we know, like a Pusat Bantuan Guaman or Legal Aid Center that is provided by the state. The state government has those powers as a start in terms of the mechanism that can be done.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a session on the legal architecture of gender rights and mechanisms. We continue to hope and pray for legal architects that will uphold gender equality and justice. Please give our panelists a big round of applause for this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to Professor Dato Dr. Noraida Endut and as well as His Excellency Edmund Bon. And joining us online is Melissa Muhammad Akhir. Don't go away yet, Melissa. Let's get a group photo with all three of you in. While you're still dialed in, let's get a photo together. Thank you to the panel for underscoring the need for inclusive reform and active civil society engagement. It's clear that legal frameworks must evolve to reflect and support the lived realities of all genders. All right, does this work? Yeah? All right, another round of applause for them, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the end of the Gender Outlook Forum 2025, with session 7 being the last one for today. Now, to close the program, we are honored to invite Puan Siti Farida Abdul Samad, CEO of Wanita Berdaya Selangor, to the stage as she has an important call to action to share with us. Please give her a round of applause.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, salam Malaysia Madani, salam kita Selangor maju bersama. Yang berhormat Puan Anfal Saari, Selangor State Executive Councillor for Women Empowerment and Social Welfare, His Excellency Edmund Bon, representative of Malaysia to the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, Board of Directors Wanita Berdaya Selangor, representative of state and federal government departments and agencies, panelists, NGOs, academia, think tank, experts, distinguished datuk-datuk, datin-datin, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Wanita Berdaya Selangor, I thank Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Sri Amiruddin Syari, Chief Minister of Selangor, Chairperson of the Selangor Gender Mainstreaming Council, for his leadership driving the state at the forefront of democracy, sustainable development that inclusive for all and recognizing women empowerment at the state level. Our respective Yang Berhormat Puan Anfal Saari, Selangor State Executive Councillor for Women Empowerment and Social Welfare. I salute her determination to lead the efforts from the grassroots to the top and provide platforms for equal opportunities for women to be successful in their respective fields. Her works in social welfare across Selangor is truly admirable. And I would like to commend His Excellency Edmund Bon, representative of Malaysia to the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, for being our voice through robust legal frameworks and policies at ASEAN level. We are grateful for your participation and insights at the Gender Outlook Forum 2025. A special note of gratitude also goes to our international delegates, including His Excellency Veronica Tan, Vice Minister of Women Empowerment and Child Protection for the Republic of Indonesia, Parents at Work Australia, Madam Emma, UN Women Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, UNICEF Malaysia, UNFPA Malaysia. Your presence at the Gender Outlook Forum 2025 brings invaluable global perspective and affirms our shared commitment to advancing gender equality across borders. Alhamdulillah, all praise be to Allah for this successful gathering and the smooth running of our two-day event. We are grateful for His permission and blessings that have brought us all together for the session. This gathering is a testament to our shared commitment and collective spirit organized by Wanita Berdaya Selangor and to our valuable strategic partners, the Westminster Foundation for Democracy, WFD, the Center for Research on Women and Gender, KANITA, USM, Pusat Kepimpinan Tun Fatimah Hashim, UKM, and the Gender Studies Program, University of Malaya. We also extend our gratitude to our community partners, Yayasan Hasanah, for their vital support. Their collective expertise and unwavering commitment were essential in making this event a reality. Together, we are grateful for this opportunity to embark on the crucial journey of advancing gender equality in ASEAN. I also would like to extend my deepest appreciation to Wanita Berdaya Selangor team for their enduring commitment and wonderful teamwork in organizing this two-day event. Their tireless dedication, professionalism, and spirit of collaboration have been the backbone of the Gender Outlook Forum 2025. Over the past 2 days, we have been a part of crucial discussions and collaborations aimed at advancing gender equality in ASEAN. On behalf of Wanita Berdaya Selangor, I thank you for making the Gender Outlook Forum 2025 a space where we not only exchange ideas, but also build partnerships needed to act on them. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Wanita Berdaya Selangor was established with a clear mission to empower women, strengthen communities, and create a Selangor where gender equality is not just an aspiration, but a reality. Guided by Selangor's Women's Policy and Action Plan 2024 to 2026, we work through 3 core pillars: research and policy development, capacity building, and women's empowerment. We build leadership, expand women's economic participation, promote social inclusion, and strengthen institutions for gender-responsive governance. The Gender Outlook Forum 2025 is a direct continuation of this mission. We recognize that globally and within ASEAN, gender disparities persist in economic participation, leadership, and access to resources. Systemic challenges such as workplace discrimination, a lack of supportive policies, gender norms, and gender bias continue to hold women back. These 2 days, I'm honored to witness rich discussions from our panel guests in formulating best practices and actionable solutions, from mainstreaming at the lower ground to legal framework, and up to policy levels in our mission to close the gender gaps. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, as we move from dialogue to action, I want to call upon all governments in ASEAN, political parties, stakeholders, and agencies to start committing to these efforts. Firstly, let's institutionalize gender mainstreaming and gender-responsive budgeting into all governance. To make this work, we need clear and reliable data that shows the realities for women and men, girls and boys separately. Without this, we can't see the true gaps, measure our progress, or design policies that truly work for everyone. especially the government, they need to lead the effort in building capacities across ministries and agencies, encouraging women's participation in leadership and parliamentary. Second, we must dismantle barriers, promote inclusive policies, and build mechanisms that guarantee women's equal presence in government. Malaysian women are still underrepresented at all levels of decision-making. In politics, they often face discrimination, bias, violence, and structural barriers. To address these issues, we need to enforce protective measures, adopt zero-tolerance policies on harassment, and increase stronger party commitments. We must commit to improving our civic education and challenges stereotypes and normalize women's leaderships at all levels of decision-making, especially political parties, parliament, and state assembly are urged to build an environment where women can lead with confidence and respect. Next, all stakeholders, governments, and agencies should start investing in care infrastructure and recognizing care work as an economic driver. As we are aware, women spend far more time on unpaid care work, which is statistic is 3 to 4 times more hours than men, thus limiting their economic opportunities. Care work is the hidden backbone of our societies, yet it remains undervalued and unsupported. I call upon all leaders in ASEAN countries to invest in childcare, elderly care, and family-friendly policies in support of encouraging women's participation in the workplace. Believe me, by doing so, we are not only unlocking women's economic potential, but also driving GDP growth. Also, I want to invite industry leaders, innovators, and policymakers to close the digital divide, make online space safe while putting women in equal roles in green and technology-driven solutions. Women often face barriers such as limited access to devices, lower digital literacy, online harassment, and underrepresentation in tech and climate action leadership. These gaps not only restrict women's opportunities, but also weaken society's overall ability to respond to global challenges. Strategies for digital inclusions and climate resilience must be centered on gender considerations. To do so, we make sure that we close the digital divide and put women in driver's seat of green solutions. And lastly, let's ensure that national legislations are aligned with global conventions such as CEDAW and ILO standards, ensuring that rights are enforceable rather than aspirational. The law enforcement serves as the bedrock of all our efforts. Laws are the foundation of gender equality, in hope that it will reduce the gaps in critical areas such as harassment, land rights, inheritance, and political participation. It must also reflect intersectionality, extending protections to women who face multiple forms of marginalization due to disability, ethnicity, or socio-economic status. So, to all lawmakers, enforcement bodies, and judiciaries, let's align our national laws with global gender standards, ensuring equal protection for all, because rights mean nothing without protection. To all distinguished guests of the forum, as I stand here on this very stage, I would like to convey my hope that Selangor continues to lead by example, demonstrating that gender equality strengthens our economic and enriches our communities. We also would like to extend collaboration, especially to the federal and other state governments in these initiatives. We must work together hand in hand to make gender mainstreaming a national imperative across budgets, laws, and developmental strategies. And to our ASEAN partners, together we keep gender equality at the heart of regional cooperation and integration. Ladies and gentlemen, the Gender Outlook Forum 2025 is not the conclusion, but the start of a stronger, united movement. From Selangor to Malaysia, and from Malaysia to ASEAN, let us show the world that equality is not just a dream, but the path we choose and the future we will build together. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Puan Siti Farida for that powerful and purpose-driven call to action. It serves as a challenge for us to rise, act, and lead with intention. Your message today reminds us that gender equity is not just a value we talk about. It's a responsibility that we all carry, a culture we build, and a future we fight for together. So thank you once again to Puan Siti Farida, and congratulations to you and also the team at WBS for making today's platform happen. All right, now as we move from dialogue to direction, the words of our leaders will anchor our collective resolve to turn insight into implementation and momentum into meaningful change. Now let's call upon to the stage Yang Berhormat Puan Anfalsari, who has been a supportive figure this whole way, to share her reflections. So please welcome Yang Berhormat.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Salam Malaysia Madani. Salam kita Selangor maju bersama. How are you ladies? Are you power up? Yeah. Okay. Alhamdulillah, over the past 2 days, we have witnessed rich discussions, honest reflections, and bold ideas at this Gender Outlook Forum 2025. We came together with participants from government, civil society, academia, the private sector, and international organizations with one shared commitment to advance gender equality and build a more inclusive and resilient society. In these 2 days, we have discussed a myriad of topics, all of which are very important in our current world. First, on gender mainstreaming and data systems. We agreed that gender equality only becomes real when it is built into the machinery of government, from budgets to program design, procurement, and evaluation. That means gender-responsive budgeting, gender focal points with real authority, and data systems that disaggregate by sex, age, disability, and geography, so that policies are guided by evidence, not assumptions. The takeaway is clear: no data, no accountability, and Selangor will continue strengthening our capacity, standards, and dashboards to make gender outcomes visible and measurable. Second, on women in Malaysian politics representation, progress, and pathways. The conversation moved beyond numbers to focus on the conditions that enable women to step forward and stay the course. Safety from harassment, fair access to resources, mentoring pipelines, and family-friendly political cultures. We heard that progress is possible where parties embed internal targets, invest in candidate training, and enforce zero tolerance for gender-based violence in politics. Our pathway is to pair talent development with institutional safeguards so women can lead without penalty. Third, on reimagining care systems through family-centered policies. We reframe care from a private burden to a shared public good and a growth sector. The care diamond state, market, community, and family must be balanced with practical tools, affordable childcare and elder care, respite services, mobile and home-based care, and recognition of unpaid care in the formal economy. Investing in care unlocks women's labor force participation and protects family well-being. In Selangor, this aligns with our care economy policy: care is work and care has worth. Fourth, from dialogue to action across ASEAN. Regional collaboration matters because our challenges are shared, from GBV, gender-based violence, to climate risk, to digital divides. We discussed peer learning on gender-responsive budgeting, common indicators, and practical cooperation on safe migration, social protection, and crisis response. The message is to move from ad hoc projects to repeatable frameworks and joint benchmarks so progress travels across borders, not just within them. Fifth, on power, presence and pushback in politics. I think this is the most interesting session where we could learn from our politicians themselves, where women face coordinated resistance, online abuse, gatekeeping, and double standards. Solutions must be equally coordinated. Party rules that deter misconduct, rapid response mechanism for harassments, legal recourse that works, and coalitions that amplify women's voices in the public square. We commit to building allyship and protection protocols so that women's presence is not merely symbolic, but powerful and safe. 6, embedding gender-inclusive frameworks in tech-driven sustainability. Green transitions and digital transformations will define the next economy. If women are absent from these spaces, inequality will grow. We called for gender analysis in climate and tech projects, inclusive design in public services, and skilling pathways that open green and digital jobs to women and girls. Sustainability must be people-centered and gender-responsive, or it will not be sustainable at all. 7th, bridging the digital divide and the role of media in addressing GBV online. Connectivity, affordability, and digital skills are necessary but not sufficient. Safety is essential. We discussed platform responsibility, survivor-centered reporting, and newsroom standards that avoid victim blaming while signposting support services. The media can be a force for prevention and dignity. Our task is to align access, literacy, and safety so every woman can participate fully and safely online. 8, the legal architecture of gender rights and redress mechanisms. Rights on paper must translate into protection in practice. That requires clear law, strong enforcement, accessible legal aid, trauma-informed services, and coordinated one-stop mechanisms for survivors. Independent oversight and routine monitoring close the gap between promise and reality. We live with a common resolve to strengthen the rule of law for gender equality. Ladies and gentlemen, for Selangor, this forum is not the end. It is a beginning. Through the Selangor Women's Policy and Action Plan 2024 to 2026 and the Selangor Care Economy Policy 2024 to 2030, we will first invest in care infrastructure and recognize care work as part of the formal economy. Second, mainstream gender perspectives across state policies and budgets. Third, collect and use gender disaggregated data for evidence-based decisions. And lastly, strengthen women's leadership in politics, in business, and community life. So my deepest appreciation to Wanita Berdaya Selangor. Please give them a round of applause. The Westminster Foundation for Democracy, WFD, KANITA USM, FSSK UKM, the Gender Studies Program UM, and Yayasan Hasanah as our community partner, and to every speaker, moderator, and participant who made this forum substantive and solution-focused. Distinguished guests, the path ahead will not be easy. Cultural barriers, structural inequalities, and digital divides remain. But we have a roadmap, partners, and resolve. Let us leave this hall with a shared commitments, clear timelines, and the courage to implement. Together, we can build a Selangor, a Malaysia, and an ASEAN where every woman and every man can thrive equally, where care is valued, leadership is shared, and inclusion is our strength. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, salam Malaysia Madani, and thank you.
Thank you very much, and Berhormat, please do remain on stage for the next agenda. Thank you for your words that have grounded us in purpose and possibility as we close today's forum. Now, on behalf of Wanita Berdaya Selangor, we would like to once again invite Puan Siti Faridah to the stage to hand over the call to action resolution to Yang Berhormat. As we all gather for the forum, this signifies our collective commitment to advancing gender equality and driving impactful change across policy, community, and leadership levels. A round of applause for them. All right, ladies, please do stay on stage because now it is time to announce the best poster presentations for Gender Outlook Forum 2025. These posters that you have seen outside of the hall at the gallery represent the creativity, research, and advocacy of participants who have translated complex gender issues into compelling visual narratives. Now, out of many outstanding posters, 3 in particular have been selected. Are we ready to find out who the winners are? Can we do louder than that? Are we ready to find out who the winners are? All right, but before that, for everyone's information, the selection of winners has been made by a panel consisting of Professor Dr. Intan Hashimah Muhammad Hashim, Professor Dato Dr. Noraida Endut, and Dr. Zairini Azmi, all from USM, as well as Associate Professor Dr. Norbaya Abdul Qadir from UKM. Thank you to the panel. All right, so without further ado, let's find out who the 3 are. Now, in no particular order, let's call out the first winner. The first winner is Anis Farhana Amran with her poster, When Does the Gender Gap Begin? An Exploration of Early Career Disparities. Let's invite Anis Farhana up to the stage. He'll be receiving a token of appreciation as well as cash to take home. Congratulations. Anis Farhana, don't go anywhere. Please do stay on stage. We want to get a group photo later. All right. And now the second winner. Suhaila Abdul Rashid with her poster, Urban Design for All, the role of gender in shaping safer public spaces. Where are you? Puan Suhaila, congratulations. Puan Suhaila will also be receiving a token of appreciation and cash to take home with her. Congratulations again. And the third winner. Please give the loudest cheer you can for Farah Murshida Muhammad Fuad and Murniwan Muhammad Noor with their poster, Does My Opinion Not Matter Because I'm Female? Gendered Hate Speech and Its Impact on Online Political Discourse. Congratulations. May your creativity and art inspire us all. Congratulations again to all of the winners. Thank you to every participant who contributed to this vibrant showcase of ideas. Now let's get a group photo with all 3 winners. Let's give them another thunderous applause. All right, with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being part of the Gender Outlook Forum 2025. May the connections made here ripple outward into lasting change. On behalf of the organizing committee, I, Nadia Azmi, extend our sincerest apologies for any shortcomings throughout the event. Remember, always be inspired, mobilized, and united, and be ready to shape a future rooted in true gender equality. With that, thank you, and have a pleasant day ahead. Also, happy Merdeka, everyone. We do have an announcement. Someone left their pouch behind. To a Puan Nor Sarimah Saleh, please do claim your pouch from me at the rostrum in front here. Nor Sarimah Saleh, your pouch is here with us. Thank you.